Hey there, so today we have another beer talk, and this is going to be a little bit more industry oriented, so I hope you guys are excited about that. So this actually came off of something that recently happened. I went to the store, and it was a Total Wine, which is a large chain around the country, and they were discounting some of their beer. So this is a best buy within a couple weeks, but it's a Goza. It's probably gonna be okay. It's not hoppy beer, but they want to get rid of it, so they took $1 off the bottle. Pretty cool. I like discounts. Unfortunately for the company, I mean, the store itself probably isn't losing money anyway, so who cares? But for a small mom and pop shop, they wouldn't be able to take $1 off. They would just be simply losing money off of that bottle. But I just want to talk about beer freshness in general. So I come from a year and a half, 3 years in the industry, but a year and a half of working in craft beer retail and good amount of knowledge about the freshness of beer. So one of the most important things, if you own a craft beer place or a bar or any kind of restaurant or anything that is going to be receiving any amount of beer, it's highly important that you have somebody on staff that is educated about beer and able to check what is coming in. Obviously, you have to check that everything is coming in is actually there, because they will charge you for beer if it's not there, or they gave you the wrong beer, or something got messed up. So thankfully, hopefully your staff is there to check that. But then also, the delivery drivers from the different from the different distributors knew me by then, because I was notorious for sending beer back, and that was something I was passionate about. That is my job. I don't want to receive your IPA that has been a year old. I mean, unbelievable that the distributor would still have a year-old IPA and try to deliver it to us. But even beers that were 3 months old, because I know that it's going to take at least maybe a month or two, depending on the IPA, to sell. So now I'm trying to sell somebody 4.5 month IPA, I don't think so. So I want that product fresh. I'm going to send it back if it's not quite to code, or if it's passes Best Buy, especially if it passes Best Buy. I don't want that on my shelf. I'm sending it back. So the delivery will come, and I'm checking all the cases, but it's also important to check kegs. So I'm checking everything, and I'm sending it back, and the delivery driver actually has to take it off the invoice and then take it off when they then bill us. Highly important that you have somebody to do that. But also, people forget that, again, you have to check kegs too. A lot of people simply think that, oh, it's draft beer, it's fresh, it's fresher in draft, it's fresher in draft. No, a keg is literally just a large can. The beer in there can be sitting in a warehouse for who knows how long. Sometimes the packaged beer will be fresher, and especially if you're a brewery that doesn't sell that much beer and the distributor's just holding on to it, finally you might order that beer and it'll come in. It's like, oh yeah, that's been sitting in the warehouse for 6 months, and who knows. Distributors can be competent to semi-competent to incompetent. It's a whole range depending on the distributor that you'll have locally. So you got to send those kegs back sometime, and it's very unfortunate if you just get these deliveries and you end up finding out it's there. Thankfully, if you can work with some good distributors or good distributor reps, they won't end up taking back the product, because you'll say, hey, listen, you delivered this beer to me. I didn't catch it at the point of delivery. Can I please take it back? We'll credit. We'll get something else. That's great. Another thing that actually, thankfully, one of the distributors did for us was when we had beer that what got old, they would just simply replace a case for a case. That is very fortunate, because I was extremely vigilant every day, every week, to be checking the shelves about when beer was aging, and if it got too old, then we'd want to pull it off, we would want to sell it, and thankfully the distributor would end up crediting us and giving us another different kind of case instead. So that actually, we kept our same amount of money, and thankfully we're rotating fresh beer in and replacing the old beer. The other cool thing you can do is actually, if you have a great relationship with a brewery rep, the brewery rep, if they're doing a tasting with you, or they come in to try to do some sales, they will actually pull out their credit card and buy the old beer off the shelf and take it off the shelf. And that is absolutely fantastic, because that shows that the brewery rep really cares about the product, and also the brewery is willing to pay for that product. So actually we were making money off of that product, even though it sat on the shelf and got old, but it shows us confidence to buy more of that product, because if at worst that beer got old, thankfully the brewery rep would be helpful enough to buy it off the shelf, and we'd be compensated for that, and we wouldn't have to sit there with old beer, because that's always unfortunate. So I thought I'd just show you a little bit of my, what I used to do, and tell you about a little bit the inside and outs of checking for fresh beer. But I will say, my whole explanation of that is extremely rare, especially in the retail side. Even craft beer stores, probably not, people were not as neurotic as me, because I pretty much knew how old everything was on the shelf, especially if it was hoppy, and how long it was sitting there for. So I hope that more people in the industry are more conscious of that, especially for their IPAs, because nobody wants to buy old IPA. And I don't want to even tell you how much, probably not a lot of money, but there some amount of money that I've spent on old IPA, because it just sat on the shelf, it wasn't treated correctly, Who knows what the distributor did to it? Who knows what the retailer did to it? Also, there might be issues of, I mean, who knows how many times you've been to a bar, you might have gotten an old keg of beer and it wasn't ideally fresh, and maybe you didn't go back to that brewery, or you didn't go back to that beer. And ideally, bars should be very vigilant about getting their beers nice and fresh. What's super unfortunate, actually, something that came up in my mind, is that one of the local breweries here, one of the, I'd say, better known local craft breweries, we ended up getting a keg from them, and the keg of hop beer was probably 2.5 months old. And this is not a brewery that's distributing all throughout the country. This is a pretty small, mid-sized to larger craft brewery within New York City. So a decent sized brewery within New York City. But I'm just surprised, like, they're not rotating the product, or the rep is not like pulling the beer off of it being able to be sold. Very unfortunate. I was like, why is it, like, if you buy local, you'd want your beer to be fresh, because if it's 2.5 months old, I could buy a cheaper keg from Lagunitas or Sierra Nevada or Stone or something like that. If I was going to buy a keg from a brewery, yeah, I'd want it to be, pretty fresh. And it's surprising that it got delivered. It was 2.5 months old. Very surprising. So I think it's a lot of job of not only people on the supply side, so the breweries and them contacting with the distributors, and distributors doing a good job on holding back old product and delivering it correctly. But really, what it really comes down to is the last person that you deal with, which is the bar, the retailer, the restaurant, whatever you want, the last person that you actually buy that beer from, because they are the ones that are going to be purchasing and receiving the product. And I think a good amount of people need to be a lot more educated about it, and a lot more vigilant about just sending back old beer. And if people are not going to accept that, then those are people you shouldn't be working with. And you should not be working with distributors and breweries that are going to be completely fine with older beer being bought by you and then sold to the consumer. Because as a retailer, as the person that is connected to the consumer, you're going to be the one that really takes a hit and offers a customer a bad experience, because not only will they not enjoy the beer and think of the brewery, first off, the distributor is completely off the hook. So nobody thinks about a distributor when they have that old beer in a glass. They think about the bar doing something poor and then the brewery's beer being bad. So it's one of those two. So the distributor actually has little incentive to do a great job at that. So really, at the retailer side, you really have to enforce the distributor to be delivering fresh beer. You have to check on that and just be super vigilant. And I think a lot of people are super lacking in that in the industry. And hopefully we get to that one day, because freshness of beer is absolutely important, and great care for beer is extremely important. And I hope more people enjoy good beer, because people are really more passionate and really do a good job at taking care of their beer and serving it fresh. Until next time, guys. Cheers. Let me know what you think. Post in the comments with any questions. Later.